My name is Gillian Price and I'm doing my assignment 3, semester 2 for F001602, and I'm in my full chef's outfit today. I've got my chef's hat, my chef's jacket, and then I also have safety shoes on to protect me from any spills or falling pans, stuff like that. I've got my steel toes in. I've got my mise en place here for all the courses that I'm going to make. It's going to be a 3-course meal today. I've got my baguette here for the French onion soup, red wine, salt and pepper that's going to be used across the courses. We've got our onions, house of garlic, Gruyere cheese, salted butter. I've got all my cooking utensils here that I need. I've got a whole different sets of knives, different chopping boards for each thing, fish, vegetables, raw meat and cooked meat, and then I've got my kitchen scale there to measure out everything. And then for the main, we're going to be doing Italian seasoned sirloin steak, which is going to have a red wine sauce, and then herbed couscous. And the herbs that I'm going to be putting in is dried oregano and then fresh chives, parsley and rosemary. And then we've got our beef stock that's going to be used in French onion soup. And then we're going to do a salad of bell peppers and carrots and onions. And then for dessert we're going to do a creme brulee, but it's not going to be with amaretto, it's going to be with Malibu liqueur, so it's going to be like a coconut creme brulee. I've got the eggs here, vanilla pod, we've got the blowtorch should we need it, and then we've got our cream and some edible flowers here for the presentation. Cut. Okay, I'm going to start with washing my hands, just to make sure that everything is clean and hygienic. Now we're going to start cutting the onions for our French onion soup. So I'm going to grab our 2 brown onions. So the recipe calls for 200 grams, and each of these are thin slices down. Okay, so now I'm going to turn on the stove, and I'm going to be making the French onion soup in this pot. The stove goes up to 9, I'm putting it on 5, which is a medium heat. And then I'm going to take about 10 grams of butter here. Put that into the pot. Just a little bit of... Okay, now that our butter is melted, if you have a look in this photo, you can see butter is melted. We'll add in our onions. I'm just going to mix them, I'm just going to cover them so that they can simmer in the meantime. Okay, now we're going to make our beef stock in the meantime while the kettle's boiling and while our onions are going. I'm using Knodrock's beef cubes. I have a 250 ml measuring cup here. I'm going to do 2 of these because the recipe calls for 500 ml of stock. So I'm going to measure out 1. That's 250 ml. And that is 500 ml. Okay, now I'm just going to whisk this through. We don't need that much, so I'm just going to cut off a small piece there. Put the rest in the package. And I'm just going to cut the rind off on the sides. Okay, so now we're going to grate our Gruyere cheese on the core side of the grater. Okay, so now I'm going to start prep work for red wine sauce, because that does need quite a while to reduce and get nice and thick. I'm going to be using this Plum Box soft, smooth, dry red wine. Unfortunately, I don't have another brown onion with me, so I'm going to be using a red onion. So this onion isn't going to be cut the same as our onions for our French onion soup. This one's going to be finely diced. So So for that I'm going to slice it down the eye in the middle, put one piece to the side, using the balls of my hand, and place that down there. I'm going to slice halfway through the onion, then we're going to cut downwards, as close together as I can get them. Okay, so now I've diced my onions, fine diced over there, and I'm going to take some butter to add to our pan. Okay, so now we're going to prepare our stock for the red wine sauce. It's also going to be beef stock again, but it's just going to be a smaller amount. Okay, so I've got my boiling water here. This recipe for the red wine sauce calls for 250 ml of stock, so that's the cup that I have here. It's a 250 ml cup. Okay, so now our stock is done, so I'm going to add, we've got melted butter here. I'm going to add our onions in. I'm going to simmer these. Okay, so now I have my clean garlic clove and I've cut off both ends of it. It's completely peeled. I'm going to take my knife. I've also just cleaned the knife. I'm going to use the flat end of this knife. Just put it on top of the garlic clove, squash it like that. And then also just going to give it a little bit of a rough chop. Okay, so the next step for this, we're going to take our stock that we prepared earlier. I'm just going to give it one more whisk. I'm going to add it into our onions here. Set the bowl aside. I'm not really worrying about cross-contamination at the moment because it's onion to onion. There's no raw meat or any seasonings that are going to carry over that aren't in either of the pots. So I'm using the same spoon. I'm just going to stir the onions around in the stock. The onions have come up to a nice boil, so we're going to take them back down to a simmer. Put it on 2. Just going to give them a stir, make sure there's no onions getting stuck and burnt at the bottom. So that boil will now, that I've turned the heat down, the boil will now calm down and go down to a simmer. Okay, so now we're going to prepare the marinade for the beautiful piece of sirloin that we have there. I'm just going to grab a bowl. This marinade calls for 4 cloves of garlic. I'm going to eventually pull out of here. Okay, so now we've got our cleaned garlic cloves here. Just going to crush them again. Put that to the side. Okay, so now we're going to add garlic into our bowl. So we're going to mix our marinade. And just take a pause on the marinade because our onions on this side are finally ready. So we're going to add in our garlic, 125 ml, which is a half cup, which is the measurement I have here. So I'm going to pour it in. Should be a nice sizzle now. Just stirring 1 through. We're going to have 2 tablespoons of olive oil. That's 1. This is a 1 tablespoon measurement that I have. And that is 2. And we're going to add in our salt, just a little bit, pepper, I like to add just a little bit of the seasoning because I like the dehydrated pepper and paprika that we have inside of this dry spice. So I'm going to add a tablespoon of that. My hands are clean, I'm just going to clean it out with my finger. Add it in there. I'm going to do 2 tablespoons of oregano. And next we're going to prepare some parsley that's also going to go in. So I'm going to prepare this parsley by cutting off the main stalks. I'm going to leave the small ones. Okay, so now I've cut all the stalks off of the parsley, but I just want to move over here because we've got to multitask. So I'm giving a good stir to this red wine sauce while it's simmering, just to make sure that it's not burning. And now there are going to be flavors that carry over, so I'm going to get a new spoon and I'm going to check on our French onion soup. Just give it a good stir. Nothing is burning at the bottom and it's simmering nicely, so that's still good. I'm just going to turn the heat up a little bit because I'd like a few more bubbles there. Yeah, there we go, it's starting to simmer again. Okay, cut. Just gonna bunch it up together and do a super fine chop on it. Okay, so now that our parsley's all chopped up, just gonna measure it out. That is 1 tablespoon. 2 tablespoons. Just cut off some bread here to serve with it. This baguette is slightly butter these pieces of baguette. I'm going to add in the beef stock. Give it a stir. Okay, so now our stock and red wine has come to a boil. So we're going to bring the heat back down to a 3 so that it can simmer. And next, our soup is ready. So we're just going to add in a little bit of salt, and some pepper. Okay, so I've got my shot glass here, and I've got white wine Sauvignon Blanc that I'm going to add to the onion soup. Just going to mix that through. Just give it, just put it off the stalk like that. Okay, so now I've pulled the rosemary off of its stalks. I'm just going to cut this up. It's fresh, it's not dry, so it's hard to crumble it. Just going to tilt it like this. Pour it in. I'm just going to turn off the stove. Now that we have our soup in our bowl, I'm going to put our toast on top. grab our Gruyere cheese that we grated earlier. Sprinkle this over. Okay, now we've got our grated cheese on top there. Now it's going to go in the oven just to broil and bubble on top. Okay, now I'm going to mix all of this together for the steak. So I'm going to put half of this onto the steak. Okay, so off camera I have done a second bag over just so that the outside isn't so greasy. Then I'm just squeezing the bag, pressing all of these flavors into the steak. Okay, our French onion soup is now complete. The cheese is bubbling. I'm not going to touch the container because it's still hot. Just going to garnish it with a little bit of parsley on top. So I'm just going to set that aside for plating later. Oven is off, sorry, stove top is off. And then we're going to start preparing our pepper and carrot salad. I'm cutting off the ends of this carrot. Now that I've cut off the end, I'm going to hold the carrot at an angle, have my knife on the side here, and then I'm just going to brush it down. Take the skin off to peel it. Starting with the yellow bell pepper, I'm just going to take out the stem. Move it like that. Because it's only a serving for one person, I'm only going to use half a pepper. So I'm going to put this aside. I'm going to cut it into quarters now so that it's easier to clean. Turn it over, tap it. I'm just going to slice that off along the side. Okay, now that my pepper's been cleaned, I'm going to slice it down like this. Okay, now that I have my yellow pepper cut, I'm going to do the same with my red pepper. Okay, so now I have my carrots, red pepper, yellow pepper, all julienne cut. Next I'm going to cut up the red onion, also. And I'm going to do slices downwards like this. Okay, so now I've got my cleaned and peeled clove of garlic here. Just going to pinch it there, lift my fingers up, slice it down the middle. Chop thin little slivers through the middle. Do the same on the side. Putting it on a medium to high heat. And then get a little bit of butter. Add that into our pan. The salad has been cleaned. I'm going to add everything into the pan now. That is going to saute for approximately 10 minutes now. Just going to stir everything so it gets evenly coated. Okay, so we're now going to start with the creme brulee while our veg is simmering over there. And the recipe calls for 625 milliliters of cream. I have a liter here, but I'm putting in 250 mils now. So that's 250. $500. use our half 125 ml to get lemon juice. And I'm just going to squirt a little bit of lemon juice to taste. Close it. Then I'm also going to just give my cream a stir here. My vanilla pod is still in there. Just giving it a stir with that. And now that I have my sauce there, I'm just going to put a little bit of our... Okay, now I'm going to take my knife and I'm just going to scrape the inside of this pod out. Our egg yolks from our egg whites to get them ready for mixing. I'm going to break these open, put the shell aside, catch it in my hands, and transfer this over. We're going to do this 7 times because we need 7 egg yolks. Half a cup of caster sugar to add to our egg yolks. Level it out all together. Okay, now we're going to combine our creamy vanilla mixture with our egg mixture here. I'm just going to whisk it and combine it. Slowly so I don't spill, pouring it up to the line. Now that the ramekins are in pan, I'm going to pour in our boiling water for our double boiler. And I'm just going to fill it up until we reach halfway up the ramekins. Now we're going to start preparing our couscous. So we're going to put 100 ml of hot water into a pan. And we're going to add some salt. And then we're going to add just a little drop of olive oil. 100 grams of couscous. And then I'm going to stir the couscous through into the water. Now I'm going to leave it for 2 minutes to swell. 5 grams. That's what we can add in there. And turn the stove back on. And I'm only putting it on 1 just because we need or actually 2, just because we need a little bit of heat there. Now I'm going to mix the butter through the couscous to melt, and this is also going to help separate the grains from one another. Now that I'm done mixing the butter through the couscous, I'm just going to take a little bit of the herbs, sprinkle them in. I'm going to start plating it. I'm actually going to put it into this measuring cup and use that as a mold, as I don't. And then I'm going to empty it out on my plate. There we go. I have to scrape some of this off or we're going to have a lot of burning. My pan. pan up. It's on a medium to high heat. We're going to pour in a little bit of olive oil. This is a grill pan, so it's perfect for steak. And then we're also going to add some butter into the pan so that we can baste our steak as it's cooking. Okay, so now the alarm has just gone off for the delay. So we're going to take them out of the oven for about 2 hours. I'm just going to pick them up. Put them down. I'm just going to tilt the pan with the butter and oil. Okay, it's been 2 minutes. I'm going to turn the steak over. Looking good. Okay, now that our steak is rested, pick it up, put it on the side, just take the water away. And this is our final plating for the main course and final plating for the French onion soup. Okay, so now we're going to try our French onion soup. Onions are nice and soft. It came out very, very nice. And the bread is still crunchy. It's very tasty. Now if we move on to the main, we'll also have a look and see how the steak is cooked. That's medium. Okay, I'll take a piece here. And get a little bit of our sauce. Sauce came out very nice. And the steak as well. Some of the couscous. And we have our salad. It's all really tasty. Good job. Okay, now that our creme brulees are set, we're going to take our sugar and sprinkle it over. I'm going to do a nice layer on top. And then we're going to turn the blowtorch on. I'm not doing it in the oven, I'm doing blowtorch. Okay, now that we have blowtorched our sugar, it's bubbling and it's very hot there, so we're just going to give it a chance to cool and let the sugar set. Okay, so now I'm just going to be adding, now that the sugar is hard and cool, I'm going to be adding our pansies on, and that is our final presentation for the creme brulee. Okay, let's take off the flowers. It's very tasty. And it's set all the way through.
Cool.